अभंगे पूर्वांगे निवृत्त भुवि निःशब्द कलिते अभंगे पूर्वांगे निवृत्त भुवि निःशब्द कलिते प्रबुद्धे सन्नद्धे ज्वलन सदन मौन गहने हसन्नेत्रे वक्त्रे स्फुरति सति दैवस्य लसिते जगद्राज्यं पूज्यं भवति जगदीशस्य भवनं with this prime part without break in the still and lonely land, in the abode of the flame set in silence, awakened and intact, profound and without noise, with the divine splay shining in one's face with blooming eyes. This world's kingdom becomes adorable, home of the world's Lord. A happy description of the world as it appears in a meditation on the Lord. I speak of one meditation because there are several kinds of meditation according to the object that is sought to be realized is the mode of meditation. And what is meditation? Put in simple words, meditation means the gathering up of all our faculties and mental energies and pouring them on an object that we intend to study, that we want to unravel, that we want to understand. There is a meditation of a scientist working in his laboratory. There is the meditation, the rumination of an artist before he sets the brush on the canvas. There is the meditation of a philosopher. There is the meditation of a seeker of God who wants to realize the higher reality, the consciousness of God. And it is to this type of meditation that I propose to devote my time this evening. Before one wants to realize God, one has to settle for himself. God as what? God is something. The divine is something. Our ancient scriptures say with one voice that in itself the absolute reality is unthinkable. You cannot describe it, whether it is the Vedanta or the Tantras. They say it is Param. You cannot conceive of it. It is beyond anything that you may think or conceive or describe. Anirvachaniyam. Words and mind fall back when they are sent up to it. But the same reality, the same absolute reveals itself to the human mind, to the human aspiring consciousness as Sat Chit Ananda, an eternal existence, an ineffable consciousness, a perpetual delight or bliss. Now, in what form am I seeking to realize the divine? In what form I want to realize God? As pure, untainted self, or as the vast chit, the consciousness that is spread out in the universe, unrolling universes after universes out of its bosom, or as the delight for which the Leela, the play of the cosmos, is going on from time eternal. According to my object shall be my meditation. But there are certain common features. Whatever the type of meditation, whatever the precise nature of the goal, there are certain common features. And what are they? As I said, normally when we look into ourselves, our faculties, mental energies, emotions, life forces are spread out in 100 and 1,000 directions. So much so that if you take a man by surprise and ask him, what are you thinking at this moment? 99% of the 100 he will say, I don't know, or he will try to think. One is spread out. The first step when one wants to meditate is to slowly gather, call back the dispersed faculties and consciousness gradually towards the object of one's concentration, object of meditation. Slowly it is being focused, brought into the right focus, and one starts letting the mind dwell upon it. Say, you are thinking of wanting to know, of wanting to meditate upon Krishna, upon Christ, upon Buddha. You are familiar with certain forms. You are also familiar with the qualities that are associated with them. So you make the mind dwell on that form or on that quality and think about it. But as soon as you take this first step, there is a contra phenomenon. Thoughts rush in, thoughts from all sides invade your mind. You forget for what you are sitting, and your mind runs away with your thoughts. People complain that the moment we start to meditate, all kinds of thoughts rush in. I never thought that I was capable of such thoughts. They are coming in. When I work, when I eat, I have only one thought. But why, when I want to think of God, there are 100 thoughts invading me? The fact is, these thoughts are always there around one. One is normally preoccupied with the work at hand, and not concerned with the other thoughts. But when one sits quiet, one suddenly becomes aware of the mighty movement of thoughts from the universal air around. Let us leave aside the thoughts that come up from oneself, from the chambers of one's own mind. But the thoughts are always there. All that happens is that when one sits quiet, one takes notice of them. What is to be done when so many thoughts invade you? You realize after some time that you have been thinking of quite another thing, whereas you have sat for particular object. There are 3 or 4 methods that have been recommended to slow down the flow of thoughts, to stop the invasion of thoughts. One is the way recommended by Swami Vivekananda in his lectures on Raja Yoga, where he says, let the thoughts flow. You don't participate in the thoughts, just stand aside, but watch the thoughts. Let them run. Let them reveal the nature of your mind, the quality of your nature. Watch it slowly. When you do not participate in them, slowly the thoughts, the speed dies down. Gradually they ebb away. Of course it takes a long time, but nothing is ever done in a day. The second method is to boldly, as the Theosophists would say, catch the thoughts as they come. Treat them as intruders, not your own thoughts, but thoughts that are being projected from the universal atmosphere. The moment you become aware of it, stop them. Of course, in the beginning you will be doing nothing else except being vigilant and stopping the thoughts, but after a time the flow ebbs. A laborious and a most difficult process. Third, which I personally have found it most advantageous, practicable and worthwhile, that is, I have an object of meditation, an object of concentration. I think of God, I think of peace, I want quiet, I want calm. My mind is centered on that, but so many thoughts come. Let the thoughts come on the surface. Let me not concern myself with them. I must concentrate only on the thing that concerns me. As I am talking to you, you are hearing the horn of a car passing, some other fan noise, but you are not distracted because you are listening to me. Those of you are listening to me. So, if my object, my interest in my object is certain, true, sufficiently possessing, I concern myself with the object of my meditation. Thoughts come and go on the surface, with the result that after a time there is what is called a bifurcation of mind. The bulk of the mind concerned with the object of meditation, and the peripheral mind over which the thoughts run through. It does not matter. I am writing a report, a child is there, it sings, it plays. The ear takes cognizance of all that it does. But does my mind get distracted? It does not. So this way of leaving the thoughts to themselves without associating oneself with them, conserving one's energies for attending to the object of meditation, so that in course of time a bifurcation of mind takes place, is the third method. The fourth is when you sit for meditation, to pray for peace, shanti, and whatever the thoughts that come, whatever the ideas that flow, try to stick to that peace. Ignore the thoughts as the possession of the positive element of peace, positive element of bhakti takes possession of you. The distraction of thoughts becomes irrelevant, immaterial. These are the four ways of regulating thoughts which disturb without exception everyone who takes to the discipline of meditation. Then of course there are certain incidental points, that is, in what poise one meditates. Of course, Patanjali has said, Sthira Sukham Asana. Anything in which you feel comfortable, any poise, posture in which you feel happy, in which your body can sit without restlessness for a while, that is your asana. The science speaks of 64 or 84 asanas, but it is academic exercise. But for a serious practitioner of yoga or meditation, he has to decide according to his age, according to his health, according to his circumstances, which posture is most convenient for him, in which he can sit for a length of time without feeling restless in his limbs, having a gathered condition, any sort of an immobile condition in his body. And of course, when you sit like that, as the Shvetashvatara Upanishad says, one has to sit erect. It will not do to crouch. It will not do to rest like that, at any rate in the beginning. It has to be erect. The spinal column has to be erect, so that the breath, or in cases of Kundalini Yoga and similar disciplines, the Shakti that is awakened can flow up directly without deviation. One has to sit erect. The chest, the throat and the nose, they must be in the same straight line. That is one. It is a mechanical rule which each one has to find. Once one gets accustomed to meditate, once it becomes natural for him to meditate, thereafter the posture loses its importance. One learns to meditate when one walks, to meditate when one stands, even when one rests and relaxes in an easy chair, one can very well meditate. There are cases even where one meditates when one is at rest in the bed, say just after sleep in the morning or before going to bed, but that is a very passive condition which is not very yet visible. Then there are certain small procedures recommended in addition to the four methods that I mentioned for the regulation of thoughts. That is not exactly prana shuddhi, Not exactly Nadi Shuddhi nor Pranayam, but again, as Vivekananda says in one of his lectures, to utilize the breath in order to gain control over thoughts. Any psychologist, any medical man will tell you that there is an intimate relation between the breathing of the life force and the mental apparatus. The life force supports the mind. The condition of the mind has its repercussions on the flow of breath. So when the thoughts are rapid, one takes care to slow down the breathing. One slows down the breathing, follows the in-breath as slowly as possible. When it touches the lowest depth possible, one draws it up slowly. This, the elongation of breath, in its higher form, more systematized form, constitutes the basis of the science of pranayama. We are not concerned at the moment with that. But it is enough if we take advantage of the principle. Vivekananda says that he prescribes a very simple method. He says, you breathe in slowly through one nostril and let it out a little more slowly through the other nostril. Take up again this breath through that nostril and let it out slowly this way. Do it 10 times, 15 times. You will see the mind gets peaceful. There is a relaxation. There is a sense of peace. And this is not meant only for those who want to do meditation, but even for office goers, for administrators who are busy, driven under tension of having to catch up with things. Suspend your work for 2 minutes and try this for 2 minutes. It takes even less. And you see how much vigor you gain, how much concentration becomes possible. This is another way to keep yourself in the right focus for meditation. To come back, then one more point. When is the time to meditate? Our ancients have it that early morning, the Brahma Muhurta, say between 4:30 to 6, is the ideal time for meditation. This is not a superstition. Any scientist who has observed the operations of nature will tell you how nature itself, natural energies are at rest. They are still asleep. There is no disturbance in the atmosphere. At that time, if you can keep quiet and sit for meditation, all nature, all sky cooperates with you and you do meditation effortlessly. Certainly, to do meditation for half an hour or 15 minutes in the Brahma Muhurta is not enough for one who means serious business. There are other times, junctures of periods during the time. The juncture between the morning and the noon, the juncture between the evening and the night, Sandhya, Samyak Dhyayante iti Sandhya. This is the time when one can meditate best. Now these junctures of periods provide ideal timings when one can just relax maybe for 5 minutes, and retire into oneself. Don't be frightened with the word meditation or concentration. Say retire into yourself. We have marshaled our mental energies, focused them around our object, controlled the thoughts. We have arrived at what Patanjali calls Dharana, concentration. Now here, I wish to draw your attention to a very popular misconception, misunderstanding, confusion of concentration being the same as meditation. No, sir. Concentration means the summoning of all the mental energies, the heart's emotions, and keeping them fixed without moving on the object of your choice. Maybe for a minute, maybe for 2 minutes, maybe on a pinpoint, maybe on a flame, maybe on an image, maybe on a word. Concentration is fixing oneself without movement upon one object. Necessarily, this is not a joke to be continued for more than a minute or two. That is why the ancients have prescribed that this dharana, concentration, should be gradually allowed to flow into meditation. The mental thoughts, mental movements, emotional movements are let flow around the object, not on the object, but around, like oil in the wick. The thoughts flow concerning the object of meditation. I think of my Ishtadevata, the God of my choice, the Godhead of my dreams. If I have a figure, I will go on thinking of the glory, of the brilliance, of the light that I have either seen or I have been told to see. Or I know his qualities of bravery, beauty. I think of them, the qualities of God, the power of God, the form of God. A scientist on his problem that confronts him in the laboratory. That is, this flow, uninterrupted flow of thought on a subject of your choice is called meditation, Dhyana. Concentration is different from meditation. One starts with concentration. Gradually it develops into meditation. And what happens when one meditates seriously? After one is accustomed to meditate, it becomes natural for one to sit for meditation undisturbed. The consciousness, the awareness of the being revolves around the object and forgets everything else. You are approaching the condition of what is called trance, a very inadequate translation of the Sanskrit word called samadhi. You are not yet into the samadhi, but you are near the portals of samadhi. You forget everything else, the object, yourself, and the process of knowing, the process of meditating, the triputi, the three, the knower, the knowledge, and the known, nothing else. Thereafter, it is a physical form, it is a physical sound, it is a physical object. As you proceed further, the physical aspect of it recedes and the principles, the subtler aspect of existence of that object comes into view. Your meditation gets subtler and subtler. This is also not the end. Thereafter, one forgets that one is meditating. One forgets that one is thinking. The whole consciousness just becomes absorbed in the object of meditation, becomes one with it. Nothing else exists. If the object of meditation has been Brahman, through his sound symbol of Om, all world, everything becomes Om-maya. Nothing else exists. One is lost, and at the culmination, one loses completely the awareness of what one is experiencing. It is only after there is some withdrawal due either to the inability of the system to bear this high concentration on the peaks of its being, or due to some external call, that the consciousness comes down. But normally one does not remember what one has experienced, except that there was a state of bliss, unexplained bliss. This is the state, the culmination of Dhyana. I have not gone into the technicalities of the several classifications, of the modalities of the process of samadhi. I have only indicated the general lines on which one proceeds. But this is not all. It will not do for a modern seeker, for a man developed in the modern age with this developed consciousness, to reach a height of being or a height of consciousness, to touch the hem of God at certain peak moments of consciousness and then say, I do not know what I have experienced. Why not? There are no breaks in consciousness. Our doctor friend there will tell you, consciousness is a continuous process. If we are not aware, if we think there are gulfs, it is because of our ignorance. We do not have the sensitivity to measure and to appreciate the lengthening of the line of consciousness. One has to make a determined effort to make a conscious bridge by some yoga or other to those heights of consciousness which are normally inaccessible to the traditional lines of yoga, so that one retains the full content of that experience. One comes back, it is a permanent possession, it is a permanent acquiring of the state of consciousness or existence or bliss that you have acquired, and normalize it in our daily life. Today, it is a misnomer to speak of meditation or dhyana for liberation alone. Dhyana, concentration, contemplation, these are all methods employed to raise our potential to their maximum. Why? Not to escape into nirvana, not to cancel ourselves from this world, but to develop our capacities for the manifestation of godly energies, for the service of God in the universe at our highest capacity. The gains of knowledge, the gains of spiritual experience that one gathers, that one garners in the highest peak moments, have to be established, normalized, made permanent acquisitions of the body, of the system, so that when one functions in the world, a bridge is established through that individual between this world and the world of the God consciousness. It is these people who have realized something of the God consciousness, who can at will switch back to those levels of superior consciousness that are required to participate in the general life of the country. When they speak in conferences of moral regeneration, religious conferences, that the world leadership, the national leadership must be above self-interests, detached, impartial, capable of taking decisions on their own right without involving their own preferences. What is meant? It is meant that a man has developed himself spiritually, detached himself from involvement in mundane affairs, got one step above his selfish involvement. It is these spiritual people who have made a habit of meditation, concentration in their personal lives to reform and raise the level, individual levels of their consciousness, that they have to step forth and they have to participate in the general life of the country. If there has to be a redemption, if there has to be a new page turned, it is these people who have, without necessarily calling themselves spiritual people. A spiritual man does not need a label, whether he is a bhakta or a jnanin or a karma yogin. What does it matter? What matters is his consciousness. What matters is his capacity to throw himself into the public life with the best that he has, without expecting a return. The days are gone when we could meditate and do tapascharya in caves and expect the society to maintain us. We have, those of us who are privileged by grace of God, by circumstances, to evolve a little more than our brethren, have a double responsibility. Meditate certainly, but meditate in order to enrich your life, to reach out the gains of your meditation to others. Normalize the gains of the meditation. I am a disciple of the mother. She had always told me that unless you turn the whole 24 hours into a long stretch of meditation, yoga has no meaning. That is, she did not mean that I should sit in my room, but the attitude, the spirit of detachment, the spirit of benevolence, the spirit of goodwill, the spirit of broadness that I have when I sit for meditation before God, that should be prolonged even after I come out of the prayer room. That should be expressed when I have in my dealings with everybody. It will not do if I meditate in my house from 7 to 7:30. It will not do if my friend John goes to the church only on Sundays. All the 24 hours, all the 7 days of the week should be turned, lived into the spirit of meditation, which is another name for the upliftment, for the purification, subtilization of consciousness, elimination of waste, cultivation of a broader outlook, identification in soul, in emotion, in heart, with everyone. What does a man feel actually after half an hour of meditation? A man who really meditates, he feels a love oozing out of his heart. He feels nice to everybody, he feels kind to everyone, he feels all nature smiling at him. This should be made, and it is possible to make a daily feature, a constant feature. If others have blues, your smile should dissipate their blues. It is in this context that I have ventured to speak of meditation today, not as a means of self-liberation into the beyond, but as a channel to invoke the grace of God, the energies of God, and channelize them to the universe. Was it not Buddha who said that till the last man is liberated, I am not liberated? That is the note, sir, on which I would like to end. I am afraid there is no time today to take up the other subject, japa. It will take as much time. Should people be interested, should you be in a position to spare your time, and I am willing to come another day and report myself. Thank you, sir.